Because now we are going to assess whether a wealth tax actually works in doing what the Congress will hope it does, or what Sam Pitroda, forget the Congress, Sam Pitroda hopes it will do, which is to reduce inequity. Now let me give you a few facts. Rajiv Desai is here with us. Let's open them up to our questions. Let me tell you, viewers, estate duty from 1953 till its abolition in 85 happened under the Rajiv Gandhi government. Estate duty was scrapped when then Finance Minister VP Singh called it a failure. Mr Pitroda is talking about US having such a tax, but it's only in 6 states, and none of those 6 states are in the best 10 top performing states in America. And that's a survey that was conducted right up till 2023. You can go to the US Department of Finance, whatever it's called, website and check it out. None of those states, viewers, those 6 states where the estate duty, inheritance tax is applied at varying levels of taxation, are in the top performing 10 states of the US economy. It tells you something. It tells you something. It doesn't work. In India, it was rejected by the Congress. Why is it being peddled again? Let's open this up. Mr. Desai, let me begin with you first. Let me ask you, inequality is not something that is exclusive to this particular government. Let's look at the UPA's record. The wealth held by the top 10% was 55%. It's on your screens. Bottom 50 was 8.5. In the NDA, it's 5.9% and the top 10 holds 64%. There has been a rise. We know there was COVID, but it wasn't as if the 58 to 59% under UPA 1 was any better. Let's be honest.
Well,
so Rahul, how will an inheritance tax, sir, which is supposedly touted as a good idea, how is it a good idea? Can you elucidate on this point?
No, I don't know what you want to call it, inheritance tax or whatever it is, but I guess a transaction occurs when somebody transfers some wealth or some money or some resources to another person. The state feels entitled to take a tax on that, on any transaction. So if you view it as a transaction, I think that's what they're talking about. As far as inheritance and wealth tax, India has probably got the most skewed kind of economy in the whole universe. So it doesn't hurt to try and spread it out a bit. But the inheritance tax is essentially a transaction tax as far as I see it. And I think it's perfectly justified. Because if I'm doing a transaction which is taking resources from A and putting it and giving it to B, there is a tax to be paid. So,
okay, so let me ask you.
I'm not.
Let me ask you,
Sorry?
Rajiv Desai, as someone who's involved in the corporate world, who was part of, the PR corporate structure, etc., etc. Let me ask you this question. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the cost of administering the tax, the one that was 1 minute. So let me just finish, please. The one that was envisaged by Congress regimes far outweighed the revenue it generated. And you remember the levels of that tax, the inheritance tax at that level?
No, Rahul, I completely understand what you're saying. I have often said it myself, and I think one of the things that appealed to me about when I met with Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, he also said that what's the point of collecting a tax that costs more to collect? So I guess you're right in that sense. First of all, I don't think that, I think there is a need for a transaction tax.
If that's a different matter. That's a different matter. And you can have a cess of, let's say, 2% or whatever it is. But fundamentally, 40-50% is what Sam Pitroda is talking about.
No, but he is saying that this is the tax levels, these are the tax levels in the United States.
No, but he's saying this is a very good idea. We should have it at that level because in India we don't.
I don't know whether he said that.
But he said it. Please read his statement. I'm not making things up. I can play the bite out again. Anyhow, Rajiv Mantri, let me ask you this. You see, someone like you who's an entrepreneur, etc., tomorrow you will say that, look, let me start registering my company abroad. Let me take all my money offshore. Why should I invest in this economy when I'm going to be left with nothing, Rajiv Mantri? Is that one way of looking at it? Does this work, this tax?
No, Rahul, that's a very, very legitimate point you have raised. I think to fundamentally attack and assault the right to property in this brazen manner is very, very concerning. How can any responsible politician sitting in 2024 make such kind of policy proposals? It just baffles me and frankly even scares any person who knows the history of what has happened in our country. All these failed ideas, the potpourri of failed ideas is being proffered again. Everything that is being suggested was tried in the 1960s, 70s and 80s. It was thrown out the window because none of it worked. This whole push that somehow you can make the poor rich by making the rich poor is a complete mirage.
Rahul, may I comment, please?
One second, let him finish his point. Okay, 1 second, Dr. Ranganathan.
It's a complete mirage,
It's
Rahul.
a complete mirage. It hasn't worked.
Yeah, and we are only going to go down the path of pursuing the same failed ideas which have been proven to have not worked, not just in India, but a long list of countries.
Okay, so let's look at the statistics, viewers. Let's look at some statistics. The fact of the matter is that the Gini coefficient in India has been coming down. There are also, according to the statistics, a record number of people being pulled out of poverty. When all of that is happening.
And Rahul, that's what we should focus on. People talk about there are 80 more billionaires. But what about the 20 crore people who have escaped poverty? And even on those 80 crore billionaires, please check up how many are first generation billionaires. How many are first generation entrepreneurs? These are people who have created their companies in the last 20 years. In some cases, even in the last 10, 15 years.
Okay, so Dr. Ranganathan, let me bring you in on this. You see, let's look at the sociological hierarchy here. There's a neo-middle class, there's a middle class, there are the farmers, then come the rich, and then the super rich. Now, where do we draw the line? Because 50% of holdings will beggar a lot of people.
Rahul, there are 3 points I need to make very quickly. Number one, we need to realize that citizens, us, you, me, Rajiv ji, and my good friend, both Rajivs there, we are this country. The political parties aren't this country. In the previous discussion, when the BJP spokesperson very rightly was talking about how this country took a turn right from Nehru down to Indira and Rajiv of, even inserting the word socialism in the country, banks were nationalized, every profitable company was nationalized. Well, the fact of the matter is you had the last 10 years to denationalize them. You didn't. In fact, you've gone more the socialist way. So the political parties will have their say. What is important is for us to look at the data. If we look at just 3 points here, Shamika Ravi, an economist, has brought out a brilliant point, which is let's look at the bottom 50% Indians and their share in the national income. Now in UPA 2004 to 2014, in 2004 the share was almost 20% of the bottom 50%. By 2014, it has shrunk to 14.5%. From 2014 onwards, it has now crept back to 15%. So that inequality, the going down of inequality or increase of inequality has been ebbed. Now let us look at the Gini coefficient, which is the best metric for assessing whether the inequality has increased or not. In the last 10 years, the Gini coefficient, where 0 means there is no inequality and 1 means there is total inequality, it has shrunk from 0.49 to 0.4. So what are we talking about here? Is India getting prosperous? Yes, it is. Are we going back to the crackpot communist ideas of Marx and Lenin and Pol Pot to snatch wealth from those who are generating it? Removing the incentive to generate more wealth? Are we going to ignore Laffer curve, for example? Where are we going? And I'll tell you where we're going. It is because erudite intellectuals like Rajiv ji have removed their stake from the Congress. The coterie of Rahul Gandhi is not made up of people like Rajiv. It is made up of crackpot leftists from JNU. That is the problem.
Okay, so let me bring in Rajiv Desai. Rajiv Desai, look at the Gini coefficient and I've got it right here before me. It's shrinking. It's shrinking, and this is happening with an increased commitment to welfareism in an indirect sort of give from poor to rich, from rich to poor, and also We are further liberalizing, getting in more capital, etc., etc. The government is also spending. This is a virtue cycle we need to create, shouldn't we not?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. But this virtue cycle that you talk about also needs to include to have us spread the word and the understanding and the knowledge that people should pay their taxes. And in paying taxes, the state gets more prosperous, you get more services, you get lots of things better. Now, one of the problems in India has been the inequity of the tax system. And I think if that is understood and addressed, we don't have to get into all this wealth tax and all of that stuff. Just make sure that the laws you have are properly implemented and
but when they are when they are properly implemented, then people cry foul. Yes, doctor.
Yes, Rajiv ji is absolutely right. Yes, we don't have a substantial population that pays taxes. But if you look at, always look at data. You look at the last 10 years, the tax base has increased.
That is true.
More and more people are paying taxes. And I ask you a very simple question. As far as inheritance is concerned, Rahul, just a simple thing. You are going to take inheritance tax from a person who has paid income tax all his life.
Yeah.
All that poor man has wanted to do is to save for his progeny so that they will not suffer what he has. Isn't it cruel for the state to double tax him?
Double tax, Rajiv Mantri.
No, and even to add the point of indirect taxes, we are a country where we have progressivism, even in indirect taxes. We have higher taxation rates for what are classified as sin goods or luxury items.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a need for a more equitable tax system and a more efficient tax.
I just want to complete what I'm saying. We are already taxing the very rich or super rich people north of 35-40% at a personal income level. We are taxing their consumption of the super rich. Those who are buying expensive cars or staying in luxury hotels or whatever in that category, they are sort of having to pay higher taxes. There is a restriction on sort of capital being sent out of the country. So it's not that someone can send out capital to consume very easily. So by a number of different mechanisms, India is already employing a lot of progressivism in its the tax policies that are imposing upon the rich.
Look, I can only then believe and I can only then say that perhaps this is an attempt, a last-minute attempt to try in a populist way sway some votes. I just hope it is that, viewers, for all our sakes, because if it isn't, if this is a considered policy, then we have a bit of a problem. We really have a bit of a problem, viewers.
And yes. Rahul, I just want to close with, the great Nani Palkhiwala, who I think anyone who's interested in economic policy would know about.
30 seconds.
So he had said, a virtual abrogation of the right to property would spell disaster. If the right to property were taken away, the citizens to be worst hit in the long run would be the middle classes. Please note this.
Okay. Well, viewers,
affect middle classes.
You're all the voting public. Think about what you're doing over the next 6 phases. Think very, very carefully. Read every letter of manifestos, what people are saying, how they're saying it, to whom they're saying it. It's very important. Whether it's the BJP or the Congress, think it through. I leave it at this.
Thank you.